Hey there, cheap smartphone video. Waiting for a package to arrive, so I'm just kind of waiting here in the living room. I was just thinking about a way of visualizing why so many people are just so clenched up. They're so people are uptight about so many things right now. And so picture this a round disc that basically has the color wheel on it. Here shows the color wheel. And you have all these points around the edge of that disc that there's a hole, and then there's a peg that goes into that hole, and it would have to be a pretty big one because it's basically something that would show all of the philosophies and ideologies and worldviews, and all line them up into what, which ones are closest, and you have this like I said, it could be identified in some ways as being on part of the color wheel, each one. And so now picture each one of those having this wire sticking out of that peg. And the wire is the same color as what they are on the color wheel. And it normally would just be going upwards and thriving. But right now it's like something has taken these areas just going up and grabbed them and tied them in a knot. And that's what's happened to society. That's what's just going on all over the place right now. And what this is implying is we can handle diversity fine, being right next to something that is somewhat close to where we are on that color wheel. But when something is completely on the opposite side, forcing those two sides to get along, I don't see necessarily the benefit in that. Because there's always going to be resentment in that. People who want to get along, people who, are going to... I mean, someone can want to get along, and then there could be someone who just generally has an outlook that no matter how strange the methodologies or thinking patterns are of someone, it's still considered refreshing. There's always going to be people out there like that, but there's also always going to be, I'd say it's like half the country, of any country. You've got the neophobes and the neophiles. And it's weird how some people who would, if asked, that would consider themselves neophiles, but you actually find that they're neophobes, which is why there's this regressive element coming from the left. And some of the right is embracing some of the ideas that have been, more towards considering it newer ideas, and actually finally going with those ideas than the left. But let me ask you something. what are the benefits of extreme diversity? What are the benefits of it? How does that benefit a country? And you could give some sort of canned answer to that and say, well, you know, truth, justice, and the American way, or something like that. I mean, you wouldn't actually say those phrases, but that's what it boils down to. It's like, you know, because it's right. It's the way. It's how you know. And I'm starting to realize that people, just like, I mean, it's an ideology to believe that sort of thing as an absolute. Just like it's a massive ideology for someone to believe that the only way to do things is to separate the races completely and all that shit, right? You know, that's just is messed up. It's just is irrational. You know, have you ever questioned the validity of this notion that diversity is strength? In the marketplace, diversity of product can be strength. But if every place had the same balance of demographics, if that was like somehow enforced, what would happen to diversity of product? So you've got to ask, you know, when it comes to these notions of diversity that we're taught, what are the benefits and what are the negative things about it? If your only side of saying what the benefits of it are is some sort of phrase that if people from the outside look at it, that's like, you're just saying truth, justice, in the American way, or it's the right thing, it's the moral thing, it's the blah, blah, blah thing. Well, it makes us better. It makes us, and you have some sort of little phrase that doesn't really say anything. You know. So how do we get rid of this knot that's in this thing that I described? How do we get that knot out of it? What do we do? What happens if that knot keeps getting tighter and tighter and tighter? What happens if it gets so tight that some of the wires start to break? What is left at the end of those wires?